Hello everyone, welcome back to the shop. I've got the base done for Adam Savage's Workbench. I actually did quite a bit differently on this one compared to my bench. So let's take a look at the build. So to get going, I first cut all the pieces to size on my metal cutting bandsaw. Now the tube steel, the 4x4 tube steel that I use for the legs, I can only find in hot rolled, which means that it's covered in mill scale, which is really hard, very difficult to sand or even grind off. If you do grind it off, you'll leave deep divots in the metal that are hard to take care of. With this bench, I fabricated everything together and then took the legs to a sandblaster. Now the problem with that, although I did my best to sand it out, it left the legs and metal components of the bench with this really weird matte appearance. And I don't want Adam Savage to have to deal with a weird matte appearance. So I'm going to go the chemical treatment route to get rid of this mill scale. Here's how that works. Now, if you try this, you'll probably melt your face off. And since I warned you, I take no liability for that. But for sake, if you try this, add acid to water like I'm doing, not water to acid. Now this time around I am using a more dilute solution. This is 14% acid that I'm mixing about 1-to-1 with water, so I'm ending up somewhere around 7%. And this is enough to get rid of the mill scale, but it kind of turns it into slime that I can scrape off rather than just chemically blasting it away like it did the last time I tried this. So it definitely worked. I don't think any lower concentration might work. I think I went about as low as I could go and still get the needed effect, and it does take longer, but probably a little bit safer to do it dilute. So I decided that I wanted the metal fronts of this bench to not show any fasteners, to have the fasteners be hidden, and the way I'm doing that is to weld female threaded pipes on the inside of the metal fronts of the bench and have fasteners that thread into those pipes that go all the way through the two slabs of the workbench and are tightened from the middle. So this is more work, but I think it looks a little bit better. And what you see on the left is me tapping those threads in the pipes that I'm going to weld on the front of the bench. And things are pretty self-explanatory here for a while, so let's play some tunes and just watch the build. Now, I never ended up putting sand in the legs of my bench, but since this is a smaller bench, I think it's definitely going to be important to lower that center of gravity and make sure that it's not tippy. But I fill the bottoms of the legs a little bit differently with just a piece of wood and Bondo to seal up the legs. So let's take a break to talk about the plans that I do sell for these benches. Now, I've gotten a lot of feedback that people want a SketchUp model of my bench, and also a lot of feedback that people like the smaller version that I'm building for Adam. So I've wrapped up all the changes that I'm talking about in the course of this video that I've made for the smaller bench, and put them in a SketchUp model, and several versions of SketchUp are now included with the download if you purchase the bench plans, link in description. And if you've already purchased bench plans and you want SketchUp, just send me an email or something and I'll send them to you if you feel that would be helpful. And just to be clear on all the differences between this bench base that I'm building for Adam and my bench base, I'm going to go through all those differences right now. So most obviously, it's shortened by the distance between two sets of dogs. So that's 20.5 inches that's been reduced between the legs. But because it's getting smaller, I figured I would only shrink it by the minimum that I had to. So actually, in relation to the dogs, I cheated the legs out by an inch. I could get away with that and still not have any interferences on the screws, so I took advantage of that. I also widened the legs just a little bit. In my bench, they're right dead in the center of the slabs. I figured I could cheat over just a little bit. Let's see, what did I add? Added a 1/2 inch. So they're very close to centered, but they're cheated out a little bit just to give a little bit more stability. I figured on a small bench that would be a good idea. Obviously, the center pipe holding the two legs together is welded and not that crazy bolting thing that I did on my bench, which was far easier and really doesn't change much about how easy it is to break down and move the bench around. So that was definitely a good idea. I moved the hold fast holds on this bench from that leg to this leg. This is going to be the leg where the front vise is centered on. On my bench, they're over here, and it kind of gets in the way of my different concept for the dead man that I'm going to build for this bench. I think they just make sense over here, so I moved it. Let's see, what else? Obviously, the fasteners that hold the top are different. I didn't drill holes through the front. That's a whole lot more work for a minimal aesthetic advantage, but I figured, you know, why not? This bench is going to have my name associated with it, and it's going to get a lot of visibility, so I went the extra mile. Because these lengthwise braces are only on the outside instead of also on the inside like on my bench, I did add these holes for some screws that will go into the bench just to hold it down on the center as well. I think that's about it. So once again, if you buy the plans for the bench, you get all of the PDFs that I put together for my bench, you get the SketchUp model of my bench, and you get the SketchUp model of this exact smaller bench. Check it out, link in description. Let's get back to the build. All right, now it's time to weld it all together, but first I got a bunch of grief on my bench build for not beveling the corners where the welds go to make some room for better weld joinery. Can you say weld joinery? I'm a woodworker, I can say weld joinery. So I try to do it right this time. and this is the beginning of a whole lot of grinding and sanding. 6 hours for each side of the bench. I gotta say, I'm glad this part of the job is done. Now, unfortunately, because I knew I wouldn't enjoy this part of the job, I dwelled on it and put it off too much. I should have just booked the time and gotten down immediately and knocked it out. That is the right way to deal with things that you know you're not looking forward to and that you're not going to enjoy. I probably spent a lot more time being unhappy thinking about doing the job than I would have just doing the job right away. So, don't be like me. But at least I cleaned it up quick and got my new drill press set up with some storage at the same time. So I think that wraps it up. That's as far as I can get until Matt Cremona finishes the top slabs. So I'm going to give an update on that effort, and that'll be it for now.
You got it. We're just going to get a shot of you putting this plate in there.
So the slabs for Adam's bench are in the kiln and they are drying, and Matt will know literally within the next couple weeks if this is going to work, or at least have a very good idea. If the slabs don't break apart and explode and twist and behave very badly in those first initial weeks, then there's a very good chance that this is going to be successful, and that I won't have to do a big glue up to make this bench, and that Matt will be able to launch a pre-sale for bench slabs, which I think is a really cool project, and I'm really glad to be helping him out. Despite all the grief I gave him in this video, he's a friend, believe it or not, and it'd be really cool to help him with such a worthy project. So I hope that goes well. I will say, don't expect that this is going to be cheaper than the alternative of buying and gluing up boards. It'll be faster, it'll save you time, it'll be more historically accurate, it will be very cool and look very good to have monolithic slabs for Workbench, but it's a niche thing, it's very labor intensive, it requires large logs that aren't fully utilized. For a lot of reasons, it's going to be costly, so don't expect it to be cheap. Cool, but not cheap. So that's it. Catch you next time.